Yeah, I mean, it's quite counterintuitive, but when you think that over 70% of the FTSE's earnings come from overseas, it's just the rebasing of share prices. The share prices happen to be denominated in sterling, but these companies are actually international companies, so it makes sense that they increase to offset the decrease in the value of the pound. I think the other thing as well is that we've seen a bit of a monetary stimulus on the back of the Brexit vote, and obviously we've seen Mark Carney criticised for that now, but at the time he was under a lot of pressure to do something, and that's obviously provided further monetary stimulus through quantitative easing, which has fueled asset prices further. Yeah, I have some sympathy for him. I mean, everybody was shouting at him to do something in the aftermath of the vote, and the same people are shouting at him now, saying that he reacted too early. So I have a degree of sympathy. But having said that, he didn't have to do anything for quite a long time. So he's now having to actually do the job he's paid to do. Well, I think the reality is nobody knows. It's conjecture at the moment. There's going to be lots of positioning statements. There's going to be, there's going to be lots of differing views, both from the Europeans and people within Britain, but also from the constituent parties within the UK. The reality is, until April or May, when Article 50 is likely to be invoked, we just don't know. And we can see there's factions within the Tory party that are at odds as well. So you've got David Davis, who's far more in favour of a harder stance. You've got Phil Hammond, who's much more in favour of a soft stance. Ultimately, the Europeans may force a hard Brexit, but we just don't know. So I'm sure there'll be lots of uncertainty for the next few months. That's a very good question. I think ultimately it will. You can see the SNP are starting to make noises again, but if you read their statements carefully, a lot of it's being spun effectively. There's not much appetite, I don't think, when I go back up to Scotland for another referendum on independence. But I think Theresa May can't be too complacent in that front, and she needs to include the relevant views of all parts of the UK in the discussions. And Scotland certainly voted unanimously to stay within the European Union, so the views have to be taken on board. Well, we have been negative on sterling for quite a period of time, nearly 9 years, in fact. And actually, we think it is starting to present an opportunity. In our mind, Brexit was actually just a catalyst for the re-rating of sterling, which was long overdue. We've had twin deficits, which we've been talking about for a long time. We're not bringing in enough tax to cover the expenditure from a government point of view, and we're importing far more than we're exporting. So sterling was arguably overvalued. This has been the catalyst that's brought it into sight. But we do know from history that the propensity and the elasticity of the UK economy to recover on the back of currency weakness is quite significant. So we think it's starting to present value, but it will probably continue to weaken for another few months, and certainly until we get some degree of certainty over what Brexit actually means. Well, we are starting to de-risk portfolios. I mean, I think if you have to take yourself out of the relative mindset and think that for our higher risk portfolios we're up about 14% year to date. Now that's an incredible return for a very short period of time. You've basically had 2 years worth of annual returns in 1 year. So we are starting to de-risk portfolios. There's a lot of risk on the horizon. There's lots of political risk, particularly in Europe. We've got an Italian referendum and an Austrian referendum coming up on the same day. It looks highly likely that the far right party could get in Austria, which is going to create more uncertainty. We've got Merkel up for re-election in the next year. We've got French elections coming up. So there's a lot of political uncertainty at a time where we've just had the Brexit vote, at a time where the general populace are showing a degree of disquiet. So I think to actually take some risk off the table is sensible at this stage.